Hello, Inklings, and welcome to a first issue special, where I'll be talking about the future! Or rather, I'll be talking about a couple Chapterhouse comics before they hit the shelves. And yes, when these come out, they will still make an appearance on all new first issues proper, though most likely it'll just be reiterating what I say here, or maybe after a couple of weeks, the charm of these comics will wear off and it will become a rant against it. I doubt it, but hey, you never know. Anyways, let's get down to business. First up to bat is Life, Death, and Sorcery #1 by Danny Zabel. Okay, the plot to this is fairly simple. Two sorcerers, witches, or magic users, whatever you want to call them, steal something of great importance, and when confronted by an adversary calling them traitors, they send him sometime into the future. Cut to 100 years later in 1995, where we meet our lead protagonist, Amelia, and see how her life is going, all while a mysterious voice speaks of magic and adventure to her. Yeah, I tried to stay vague with that, I'm sorry. Something I do want to bring up is that Zabel actually does what most writers don't, in that instead of just saying that she's a tough girl, or making her just a kind of a bitch, and passing that off as being a deep character trait, he shows her as being ultimately a good person, with her family interaction and everything like that, but also able to fail without making it a minor setback. It's not some, oh man, I got a D on a test kind of failing. It's, she actually gets her butt whooped. It's a neat thing. As for the art, short answer is that it's good. It's got that very simple and clean look that carries very well into both the action, especially the magic fight in 1895 at the very beginning, to even just a scene at a tea bar. And interspersed we get hints of what will happen in the next parts of this storyline, such as maybe the sisters not sticking around the homestead. I definitely think this is going to be a great read when it comes out, and Life, Death, and Sorcery #1 comes out May 25th. Now let's break open The Fourth Planet #1 by Fred Kennedy and Miko Masiasek. Sorry about mispronouncing that name. I'm actually finding it hard to give this a general summary. Not because the story is disjointed or doesn't make sense. Those are easy because I can just turn around and say WTF and that it's bad and leave it at that. No, the best way to describe this is 4 simultaneous stories going on in the same vein as a TV show would. By that I mean it switches to different sides of this war, but ultimately has one overall plot. And what's the plot? Well, you're gonna have to read it for yourself because this book sets up a rich and epic setting with a spectacular narrative heightened by such fantastic dialogue that really adds a gravitas to the whole endeavor. While there's not really brevity in the writing, there doesn't need to be. Though I do like how poetic this one scene plays out, and then it sets up for a very popular Don McLean song that I do believe will outlast humanity. It doesn't make the scene itself funny in anything, it's just a neat little thing. And overall, I know some of my literary friends will smack me for saying this, this feels very much like Game of Thrones in its setup and focusing on events across this planet, minus the graphic sex and overt violence, meeting with the sheer scale and regalness of Dune. But even before any of the writing, plot, and characters set up, the art of the series blew me away. The cover I've been showing is currently the one that's up on Chapterhouse's website, and it's brilliant. It's a stunning mashup of the 3 major storylines going on in the same art style as the comic itself, which I'll bet is why this is going to be a quarterly book. It's a high-end artistic style that matches, for lack of a better term, the highbrow feel of this whole book. And yes, the colors used on the cover are basically the color scheme of the book, feeling more like a black and white book with pops of color here and there, rather than a muted colors type of coloring. That makes sense to me, I hope it makes sense to you. But that works for me, while I know it may not work for others. The reason I brought up this cover is that while it's a perfect representation of the art of the book, a clear split for here's all the plots coming up, that's not the cover I first saw. Knowing absolutely nothing about this book, this was the cover that I saw when I opened the PDF to read it. And it surprised the hell out of me. Just the scope and range and details, and just the je ne sais quoi. And honestly, both of these are stellar, and I'd love to see poster-sized versions of either or both, as I think that it'd really gauge an audience to see how epic this art is on a larger scale, and even for those just pretentious enough that they'd want the epic art hanging on their wall. Yes, that's my reviewer code for I'm being selfish and I just want them hanging in my room. Anyways, this comes out in a couple weeks, April 20th, and I cannot recommend how hyped all of us should be for this. Both of these are going to be quarterly releases, which I'll be honest feels a little off, but that's because of how amazing both reads were, and I just want to see so much more content in these series. And that's all for this first issue special, Previews Review. Please check out Chapterhouse Comics' website for their other comics and products, and this Monday's all-new first issues will also have their all-new classic Captain Canuck up on the reviewers block, so don't miss it. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and share us around. Also, follow us on Twitter and like our Facebook, where we share fun panels, big news, and other comic-related content. All that in the description below. This Monday is all new first issues, and this Thursday is another of my old binging on comics, this time about Spider-Man the Other. I'm the Comic Archivist, and stay golden, Inklings!